Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are getting into something pretty exciting, a technology that's really buzzing in developer circles and, frankly, setting new standards for creative AI.
That's right.
We're diving into Google's latest image generation and editing model. Officially, it's an update, part of the Gemini 2.5 Flash architecture.
But everyone online seems to know it by its viral code name, Nano Banana, which sounds kind of fun, doesn't it?
It really does. And that name apparently started as a bit of an internal joke.
Yeah, exactly. It popped up on El Arena first, this code name Nano Banana, and people started wondering, is this a new model? What's going on?
Right. So our sources for this deep dive are mainly a YouTube developer video transcript and some news reports. And our mission really is to unpack why the team calls this a giant quality leap.
And what that leap actually means for you, whether you're a creator, maybe using it for business, what changed under the hood to allow for these really consistent and complex images.
So just to clarify for everyone listening, Nano Banana isn't a separate thing. It's the code name for the image generation engine inside Gemini 2.5 Flash.
Right. It's native, built to leverage Gemini as well. It's smarts.
And apparently they tested those smarts right away with a super vague prompt, something like make it nano.
Which is hilarious, right? But fascinatingly, the model actually did something creative with that. It apparently turned a character into a cute nano version, but kept the scene context.
That's interesting.
It really highlights the core improvement. The model seems to understand and, crucially, creatively, execute these abstract instructions, even over several steps.
Okay, so that deeper understanding links directly to this claim that it's state-of-the-art for both generating and editing images.
Mm-hmm.
The sources really hammer this point about enhanced control using natural language. It's supposed to feel more like having a chat.
Yeah, a fun conversation, they called it, where you could edit things over multiple turns back and forth.
And that ability, the multi-turn editing, hinges on what seems to be the biggest technical win here. Subject consistency.
Oh, absolutely. That's the holy grail, really.
Yeah.
You know how older models, you try to keep a character the same across different pictures, and they'd look close.
Close, but yeah, not quite right. The face changes slightly or the clothes aren't exactly the same.
Exactly. Facial features, body shape, even like the specific pattern on your cat's fur, it would all just drift a little with each new prompt or edit.
That was always the big limitation. So practically, how good is this consistency now? Does it remember the character across many, many prompts? Is there a limit?
Well, the key thing is why it's consistent. It's not just a surface-level filter. It seems the model genuinely remembers the unique features deep down in its latent space.
Ah, the latent space. So the drifting was the model kind of forgetting or overwriting that core representation.
Pretty much. Every edit nudged it slightly off. This Nano Banana system, though, seems to have tackled that memory issue. The developer specifically said you can ask it to, render the character from different angles, and it will look like the exact same character.
Wow.
That consistency, that's the bedrock for everything else it can do.
Okay, so locking the character down solves subject consistency. But what about the rest of the picture? The background, the environment?
Right.
Can it keep that stable if you only want to tweak one little thing in a complicated scene? That gets us to this pixel-perfect editing idea.
Yeah, and the insight there is that selective changes are now more, automatic. If you tell it only to change one thing, it's smart enough now to leave everything else alone.
Unlike before, where changing, say, the curtains might randomly mess with the wall texture or the lighting.
Exactly. That was a classic failure mode. You change the curtain color, and suddenly the reflection on the bedspread looks weird, or the lamp shadow shifts. Now it seems much better at isolating the change.
So you change the curtains, and that subtle reflection on the floor just stays put. That's huge for anyone doing commercial work visualizations.
Absolutely. Redesigning a garden, visualizing office blinds for a client. You need that reliability. Or even for character stuff. Like, turn the character's head, but make sure their necklace, their jacket logo, everything stays identical. And it seems to go beyond just the pixels nearby. There's evidence of genuine contextual understanding, what they call world knowledge.
World knowledge. How does that show up?
They gave this great example. They asked it to add a background to a photo taken in Chicago. And the background it generated apparently looked pretty much what that street looks like.
So it wasn't just a generic city street, it had a Chicago feel.
Kind of, yeah. It suggests the model has learned something about how cities, or maybe even that city,
Yeah.
are structured, how light works there. That knowledge is filtering into the generation.
That spatial understanding, that world knowledge, must feed into this other concept I mentioned, interleaved generation. What exactly is that? Is it just fancy prompting?
Not quite just prompting. It's more like the model can break down a really complex request. Imagine you want, like, 50 different things changed in a scene. Move the person, change their outfit, shift the lighting, add a dog.
Okay, yeah, that would be a nightmare prompt.
Right. Instead of trying to get that perfect image in one massive, likely failing shot, interleave generation lets the model tackle it in steps. It breaks the complex instruction down.
Ah, so it processes it sequentially. Like step 1, move the character. Step 2, change the shirt. Step 3.
Exactly. You get this incremental generation of really complex images. It makes image creation feel more like a guided process and iteration rather than a single dice roll.
Okay, handling 50 edits iteratively is,
Right.
well, that's a massive step up. But how do you even measure the quality of something like that? Images are so subjective.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
The developers admitted it's tough. Quality is super subjective, and relying on humans saying, I like this one better, is slow and expensive.
Takes forever. Hill climbing on those human preference scores takes actual hours, sometimes days. It really slows down how fast you can improve the model.
So how did they speed it up?
This is where one researcher, Kaushik Shivakumar, apparently championed a really interesting, kind of counterintuitive idea. Use text rendering as a proxy metric.
Text rendering, like how well it can write words in the image.
Exactly. Apparently the team initially thought he was a little crazy for being so obsessed with getting perfect letters.
I mean, image models have historically been terrible at text. Why would that signal overall quality?
Well, think about what good text requires. Sharp edges, precise shapes, high-frequency details, consistent spacing. If the model can nail that geometry, it's a strong sign it can handle other fine details well.
Ah, so if it messes up the text, it's probably also subtly messing up the geometry of a face or blurring the texture on a product.
That's the theory. It acts as a fast, cheap check on the model's ability to handle structure and fidelity. Give him a quick signal during training, much faster than waiting for human ratings.
That makes sense. And that focus on structure ties back to what they call the interplay of understanding and generation, saying they're like sisters that go hand in hand.
Right. It's this concept of positive transfer between modalities.
Yeah.
Learning about one thing helps with the other. They used a neat analogy about reporting biases in language.
Reporting biases.
Yeah, like if you visit a friend's house, you wouldn't normally comment on their normal sofa, right? Text often leaves out the obvious, the mundane.
True.
But an image has to show the sofa, the walls, the floor. All that visual information is baked in. So visual data becomes a kind of good shortcut for learning about the world because it contains all this rich structural info that language might skip over.
Okay, so if the model has better world knowledge and structure understanding, you can trust it more for practical tasks, like getting shadows right on a product shot. So what does all this mean for users? Is Photoshop finally dead?
Well, the consensus seems to be no, not dead. But Nano Banana is definitely a powerful new tool in the production pipeline, especially for tasks needing speed, iteration, and that all-important consistency.
So for businesses, what are the killer apps?
The sources give some really clear examples. Creating tons of product photos. Quickly imagine putting your logo on a can and instantly getting shots for ads, different angles, different backgrounds.
Yeah, that saves a ton of time.
Or, like we touched on, redesigning spaces, gardens, offices, visualizing specific things like blinds or furniture for clients quickly.
And for creative uses.
Yeah.
Beyond just fixing photos.
Oh, lots. They list 5 main capabilities. First, costume and location changes, putting people or pets in totally new scenarios.
Okay.
Second, historical transformations. This sounded fun, like seeing yourself convincingly dropped into, say, an 80s mall glamour shot.
Uh-huh. I can see the appeal.
Third, photo blending, merging multiple photos into one coherent scene, like getting the whole family plus all the pets into one good shot, even if they weren't taken together.
That's useful.
Fourth is that multi-turn editing we discussed, for building up complex scenes piece by piece. And fifth, style mixing, applying textures or aesthetics from one thing to another, like making clothes look like they're made of flower petals.
Flower petal clothes.
Yeah.
And the community must be running wild with this consistency thing.
Totally. These sources mentioned advanced uses people are finding. turning hand-drawn maps into, like, 3D views for tabletop gaming,
Wow.
isolating objects to create detailed isometric models, even taking screenshots from CAD software and asking the model to apply realistic materials, like make this look like clear anodized aluminum.
Okay, that's moving way beyond just making pretty pictures. That's functional design work.
And that functionality brings up the strategic positioning.
Mm.
For developers, for power users, it's important to know where this Gemini capability fits compared to, say, Google's other big model, Imagen.
Right, they serve different purposes.
Seems so. If you, as a developer or designer, just need one really good high-res image, maybe from a simple text prompt, and you want it fast and cheap, Imagen is still optimized for that. High visual quality, single shot.
Got it. Imagen for the quick, high-quality one-off.
But Gemini, with this Nano Banana engine inside, is pitched as more of a creative partner. For complex stuff, editing back and forth over multiple turns, brainstorming ideas.
Because it has that better world understanding and can handle vaguer instruction.
Exactly. It can interpret less precise prompts more creatively. If you're an architect iterating on window designs, you need that multi-turn editing and world knowledge you get with the Gemini system.
And the grand plan is eventually to merge everything into Gemini, right? Leverage that knowledge transfer for, the big AGI goal.
That seems to be the long-term vision. But for now, they're focused on improving this engine in two key areas, which actually seem a little contradictory.
How so?
Well, the first area is smartness. They want the model to feel smarter. They even talk about it getting so smart that it might intentionally ignore your prompt
Wait, ignore the prompt.
if it thinks it can generate something better than what you asked for. The idea is you feel like you're collaborating with something that has genuine creative intuition.
Okay, that sounds potentially amazing, but also risky. What if better isn't what I actually need?
That's the tension,
Yeah.
because the second focus area is factuality.
Accuracy.
Right. For practical things, work, presentations, diagrams, infographics, you absolutely need it to be accurate. No weird extra text, no factual errors in the visuals.
So they want it to be creatively disobedient sometimes, but perfectly accurate other times?
Exactly. Finding that balance, intuitive creativity versus functional precision seems like the next big challenge.
Which brings us to the critical considerations. All this power needs safeguards. The sources do say it uses watermarks, right? Both visible and Google's invisible synthid.
Yes, transparency is definitely part of the picture. They incorporate methods to identify the content as AI generated.
But we should also mention the warnings coming from cybersecurity experts.
You should, impartially. Some experts point out that watermarking, while a good idea, isn't foolproof. In the real world, they argue, watermarks can potentially be tampered with, removed, maybe rendered ineffective.
And the bigger concern seems to be around the data itself, especially when people upload their own photos for editing.
That's the core worry highlighted. When you upload your face to, get that 80s mole shot, you're creating specific AI data based on your likeness. Experts warn this personal data, especially detailed facial images, could become a target for theft.
By cybercriminals, malicious actors.
Right, and the potential misuse if that data is stolen is quite serious. Things like creating thousands of fake documents for financial fraud, identity theft.
That's sobering.
It is. And apparently citizens have actually asked for government guidelines or clarity on safety measures around this kind of tech. It really highlights that tension between powerful features and security.
So wrapping this up, Nano Banana clearly offers some incredible leaps in creative speed and, crucially, that consistency that solved latent space memory problem. It's pushing what complex, iterative editing can be.
No doubt about it.
But its path forward seems defined by this balancing act, pushing for aesthetic quality and this potentially risky smartness, while needing to nail down factuality and fundamentally user security.
Which leaves us with a really interesting thought, building on that smartness goal.
Mm-hmm.
The developers are aiming for an AI that might intentionally disobey you because it genuinely thinks it knows better.
Yeah.
So the question for you, the listener, is, if the tool you're using starts generating something better objectively, perhaps than what you specifically asked for, how do you feel? Are you impressed by its emerging intelligence? Or are you unsettled by that loss of direct control?
That really is the core question as we move into this next phase of working alongside AI, isn't it? Something to think about.